I could see things as a child, as did my siblings. My mother always taught us growing up that there are things we might not see or understand, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. I think that's why spirits were always drawn to us. We were more open and willing to listen to the other side. This was an event that happened around 1998. I was living in a 2-bedroom, 4-plex townhouse with my 3-year-old son and his father Mike. Money was tight, so I was thinking about renting out one of the rooms to help out. Mike had a friend who, in my opinion, lacked compassion for others and would brag about how he would get one over on them. He often talked about this one particular gentleman whose name was Bill, and it saddened me. One night we were having a get-together, and he asked if he could bring him over. I was curious to meet him, so I said yes. He was a middle-aged, balding man who worked at the college as a teacher. He wasn't shy about his sexual preference, but it didn't bother me. He was kind, but seemed lonely, so he captured my heart, and we became very close friends. He spoke about his rich parents and how he disgraced them. They wouldn't even give him a key to the front door, having to always enter from the back, so their friends wouldn't see him. All he ever wanted was to feel their love. He told me that every time he went to get a haircut, he would close his eyes and try to imagine his mother's hands stroking his hair. This broke my heart and brought me even closer to him. I asked him why he was living with them, and he told me that on a teacher's salary, that's all he could afford. "This is your lucky day," I told him. "You can rent my room for considerably less than what you pay them, and I will be proud to have you walk through the front door." He was elated and moved in straight away. Things were good. My son loved him, and I loved him too. He would sit on the floor and play with him all the time. Bill said that he'd never laughed so much in his life. After a while of living there, I noticed he was getting closer to Mike's friend. I tried to warn Bill about his character and his probable intentions, but he told me he was a big boy and not to worry about. But I didn't listen. Behind his back, I went to Mike's friend and pleaded with him not to hurt Bill. If he didn't share the same feelings, I wanted him to back off. I knew he had others and was just trying to get whatever he could from Bill in his sensitive state, but he just laughed at me like I was stupid, saying I wouldn't think of hurting him. Time went on and I noticed a change in Bill. He was more withdrawn and he stopped joining us for dinner downstairs, but when I asked him what was going on, he simply told me it was nothing. He was just tired and he'd be fine. One night, he'd been gone all day visiting my mother's 3 hours away. It was a long day and we were exhausted. Bill called me while I was driving because he wanted to talk to me about something important. I assured him we would talk when I got home, but by the time we arrived, it was very late. We were so tired, we never even made it up the stairs. We fell asleep on our big couch in the living room. It was about 5 a.m. when I heard muffled, sorrowful moaning and crying upstairs. The sound were mixing in with my dream state, and reality wasn't set in. I then got jolted up by the name being called out. It was Bill, standing on the stairs, looking and calling out to me. I felt so groggy that it didn't seem real. I could hardly open my eyes, one of my greatest regrets. He was trying not to wake my son, sleeping next to me, so quietly he asked if we could talk. Looking at the clock, I remember saying, "Sweetheart, can we talk later?" He stood there for a moment and then gave me a half smile and said, "Yeah," and walked out the front door, making that the last time I ever saw him. He drove his car to his parents' house and parked in their driveway and took his own life, leaving a note that read, "You were both right." I was informed of this later that day by his father, who said it so nonchalantly, like he was ordering a meal. He wanted to arrange a time to pick up his spare keys to Bill's car, and that their house was located in his room. So many regrets and what-ifs, and in my mind, I know they don't deserve his love. His room was at the top of the stairs, and it was locked by only a deadbolt with no handle, so we had to remove the hinges to get in. His room was in disarray. Tear-soaked journals speaking about the destruction of his relationship and the infidelity of Mike's friend. There were self-loathing comments etched on the side rails of his wooden bed frame, and his clothes were in piles everywhere. I felt a deep sadness all around me in that room, and the guilt that if I had just not been so tired the night before, we would be talking right now. We managed to unlock the deadbolt, but his parents took the key, so all we could do was to prop the door closed using a small book, and we planned to change it later. I couldn't even bear to be in there. Weeks had passed, and it was the first of the month, so Mike and my son were going shopping for food, when there was a knock at the door, and it just happened to be Mike's friend. I was about to slam it in his face when he urgently said, "Please help her." I opened the door a little more, and standing next to him was a girl I had never seen before, and she looked desperate. "Please," he said. "She's in a bad situation, and her boyfriend was beating her, so I got her away from him, so now she needs a place to stay for a short while." I knew all too well about abuse, having formerly been a victim myself. I questioned why she didn't just go home to her family, but she said it was complicated, so I agreed to let her stay for a while. I told her that she could wait in the living room until we got back, because I had to clean up that room, seeing that all his belongings were still in there. I also told her that I would pick up a new door handle because the deadbolt one was in the open position, and we didn't have a key, so the door didn't shut, so she agreed to wait there. A couple of hours later, I received a frantic call from Mike's friend, asking me where we were. I told him we were picking up a doorknob, and he said, "You're not here?" and hung up. Weird. As we arrived, we were both standing in the carport, white as a ghost. He was holding her, and they both looked terrified. He told me that they went up to that room and laid on Bill's bed with the door propped closed and started to make out. I was appalled. All my friend's stuff was just as he left it. He said that they heard the door lock and the bed started shaking. There were bangs on the door and walls. Some cassette tapes he had recorded of love songs that were dedicated to Mike's friend crashed against the wall. He went on to tell me that he ran to the door thinking we were playing tricks on them, but he couldn't open it because it was locked, and no matter how much he tried, it wouldn't stop. He said that he began banging, continued until the girl cupped her ears and screamed, "Please stop." At that point, he said the door lock clicked and the door fell open as if nothing happened. I was shocked. She exclaimed that she was going to her mother's because no matter what her situation was, there was no way she was ever going back inside that house. There was a little bit of disbelief, but at the same time, we were both so adamant that this happened, and to tell you the truth, in the back of my head I told myself, yes, justice. Time went on, and Mike's friend no longer came over, and I was fine with that. I noticed that a few months later, my son started laughing at nothing, as if someone was making funny faces at him, and he demanded I put an extra plate out for dinner. I was always losing my keys because I never put them in the same place, but they would miraculously show up on the hook when I knew they weren't there before, one of his biggest pet peeves. One day the doorbell rang and it was Mike's friend. He wanted to sell me something that I knew he was probably stolen, but he always trying to rip us off. As I was standing in the doorway, I felt the back of my hair move and a slight pressure on my shoulders. His eyes got wide and he stopped talking. He was looking above and behind my head and then grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. Surprised, I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He explained that a large, dark, fog-like mass rose behind me and was lurching towards him. I told him to leave and went back inside. Always my hero. We'd been living there for a while, but once again they raised the rent, so we decided it was time to move. I miss him so much, but they will always be in my heart, and I am haunted by this even today. It takes more muscles in your face to smile and brighten up someone's day than it does to frown and be part of the problem. If you feel like no one is listening, talk to someone else. Never try to solve a temporary solution with a permanent solution. If someone comes to you, listen. Taking a few moments out of your day won't kill you, but it might kill them if you don't. We might not always like or understand the choices that our loved ones make. They are not you. They have to live in their own skin. It doesn't matter how people look or how they choose to live their life. It's what on the inside that matters, whether it be your child, your sister or brother, or your friend. We all matter. It all started this morning, when my manager and I were opening. We got 4 anonymous heavy breather calls that each ended with what sounded like demonic screeching. Think Velociraptor, mixed with a young woman being strangled. We called the police and made a report, but we both knew nothing could be done. Once the store opened, we began hearing distant screaming coming from the vault. We ignored it until I was at cash and heard the scream right behind me. My manager and 4 customers heard it, and we all paused to figure out where it was coming from. That's when my manager pointed out scratches along one of our customers' necks. They went pale and left without their product. We heard the scream a few times in a few different places, and it was always screaming right behind me or my manager. I went on break around 1 PM, and while I was sitting in the back, I heard rustling in the papers on the desk. I ignored it and started eating. All of a sudden, I felt a huge yank of my hair from behind and heard the screaming again. I screamed for my manager and ran out the store. We are currently looking at the footage, and you can clearly see my hair being pulled away from my head. Unfortunately, I don't have permission to share that video for privacy reasons. Customers were on the tapes. The yank was so violent, I lost a clump of hair. I'd given my 2 weeks notice a week ago, but luckily my manager let me go today. I couldn't stand being in that store for a second longer. I'll be calling my priest again for another blessing, in case this thing is latched onto me by touching me. I feel so violated. Moments after my attack, my manager had his shirt tugged so hard he nearly fell. Again, on the tapes, you can see the shirt being pulled away from his body by an invisible force. So creepy and scary. Cleansing clearly didn't work, and possibly made it worse. My home has been quiet for a long time, with no paranormal activity reports. Until last night. My boyfriend and I had a quiet night in, smoking up and having a big dinner. I'd worked all day, and they'd been in school all day, so we were exhausted. It was an unusually hot night for March, so we had the patio door opened a bit in the beginning, but it was raining and thundering, so we closed it before bed. We woke up at around 12 AM, so the patio door's sliding open on its own. For background, it's a metal door that makes a crap ton of noise and is heavy as heck. I remember locking it, so I had no idea how it was opening on its own. We brushed it off as maybe the wind, and went back to bed. Again, we were exhausted. The story now continues in my boyfriend's perspective because I was asleep for most of the incident. He remembers being startled awake by something pushing his back into the bed. He thought it was me, until he turned his head and saw there was nothing there. No hand. He struggled a bit and it released him, and he woke me up to check the apartment with him. No one was there. I went back to sleep quickly, and he stayed awake. I thought he'd had a dream. My boyfriend then says he heard moaning from the corner of the room and a growl-like noise. He said that the corner was really dark and he couldn't see anything there. That's when he felt a burn on his neck and screamed so loud he woke me up. I ripped his shirt off and saw 3 long scratches on his back. We immediately left and went to sleep at my boyfriend's place. When I got home this morning, I burned some incense, did some prayers, and called my friend to do another cleansing with sage. I've been home all day and not experienced anything, so I'm hoping that that was a one-off. I don't like that it physically attacked someone other than myself. And I don't like that after months of quiet, it started off so strong again. I recently left my old workplace for a full-time position elsewhere. My old workplace had terrifying entities that would mess up with us all the time. This new place is an old plaza that sits right next to a graveyard. Yippee. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have accepted this position. Last night, I was working the closing shift with my manager and another co-worker. I'd ran to the back of the store to use the washroom, and had left the 2 of them at the front of the store stocking product. While I was in the bathroom, I saw the doorknob start to violently shake up and down as if someone was on the outside, smacking it. I yelled for my manager to knock it off, assuming it was him because of his penchant for practical jokes. The door handle stopped immediately, so I continued thinking it was him while I finished up. I went out to the front of the store and noticed that both my manager and co-worker were engaged in a conversation with a customer. I said, "Hey, you guys need to stop screwing around when this customer's here." Both of them asked what I meant, and I told them what had happened. They both went pale, and my heart sank. They furiously denied being in the back at all within the last 5 minutes. My manager went and grabbed the security footage so we could watch it back. In the footage, you can see me enter the bathroom. You see the doorknob shake violently for a few seconds, and then you see me leave. No one else was in the footage, and we all felt very unsafe in the space. My manager agreed we could close early to avoid being there later than we had to be. Everything just went downhill from there. I was cashing out a customer when all of a sudden, all of the lights turned off in the store. They were off for about a minute while I searched for the light switches. All of the switches were in the off position. I had to turn all the switches back on. Most of the switches were 6 feet away from each other on different walls, so it definitely wasn't an electrical problem. The customer I was helping joked that we were haunted and left happy with the items. We all started our closing duties and locked the door. As my manager and I were in the storage room, we had a large cardboard box filled with heavy products right beside us. While we watched in horror, the box skidded across the entire 5-foot-long table and fell off beside my manager. We both screamed and left the building immediately. We ended up just locking up the store without doing the closing duties, as my manager believed they were no longer safe in the store at that point. We've now changed our hours to 9 AM to 9 PM, so that we don't have to be in the store after 10 PM. Hopefully this will help, because I've had so many paranormal experiences, I can't count them. I think I'm bringing bad luck and this entity with me wherever I go, because my co-workers had never experienced anything like this before I started working there. Even our CEO won't come into the store anymore because of her experiences there. So, my parents live in a notoriously haunted location, and I lived in their house for about 16 years. Every day, there was something happening, but I'll just keep it to the most spooky things and the most common. I was 8 when we moved in, and I got the second biggest room in the house. Straight off the bat, it started to smell of pipe tobacco in my room, and nobody was smoking in the house. Odd, I thought to myself, but I made nothing of it. Soon after, the running began. So much running. We had a hallway on the second floor connecting all the bedrooms, and small feet would run back and forth and stop at the staircase leading to the living room. This happened daily, and still do to this day. I just ignored it and thought it was the house setting. A little while later, we got some dogs, and the dogs wouldn't stop barking at my door all time of the day. So much barking, but nobody was inside. Soon after, the scratching on the walls began. Every night, there would be sounds like fingernails running down the walls, and nothing could stop it. So my family and I doesn't typically believe in anything supernatural, so we didn't really speak about it for years. Fast forward a couple of years, a new thing showed up. This thing was way more aggressive. Suddenly shadows started shooting around the living room, hallway, and some seen floating up the stairs. This thing never stopped. We would also feel that we were being watched, but when trying to find anyone watching, there was no one. Fast forward a couple of years, with all these things happening on a daily basis, whatever was lurking wasn't done cranking it up. One night, we all woke up to a massive crash. We all stormed out into the hallway and saw our big 200-plus-year-old oak wardrobe was not only knocked over, but completely destroyed. This thing was about 150 kilograms, and moving it was a nightmare that required many hands. The following day, we sat down in disbelief, and we finally spoke about the stuff as a family, and compared notes. We all had noticed the same things over the years, and for some reason, it kind of died down for a little, and we all could have a breather, but it just came back tenfold. We tried to find out why it's so haunted, and other than the prison that is located nearby, we found out that the owner, before my parents, was butchering animals in the living room. This is not a farmhouse. It's located in town, so that was odd. We removed the carpets one day, and in the middle of the room, there was a massive red stain that we couldn't remove. Time has come for me to move out. Living on my own, I got old suddenly. My dad is a very handy man and knows what he's doing. He was renovating my room and put up a shelf and locked the door so the dogs wouldn't be running around in there. Suddenly there was a big crash and my dad ran out of there. The shelf was torn out of the wall with such force, it tore the wood out with it and broke the wall. I mean, it could be decay, but I highly doubt that. He put the shelf somewhere else and it was all fine. To this day, my parents still live there, and they've come to peace with the weird stuff happening. And I jokingly ask them if the kids been running in the hallways, and yes, they do. Every day. So, my friend was living in this apartment building where all floors were his. His bathroom was in the basement, and opposite the bathroom there was a room that always seemed locked. One day I was using his bathroom, and when I was done, I noticed that the room across the hall had its door slightly opened, which I thought was odd. I told my friend that the door was open, and he rushed down to shut it and lock it, but we didn't speak more of it at this time. About a week later, I was again using his bathroom. On the way in, I double-checked the door across the room. It was shut, so I just did what you usually do in the bathrooms, and when I got out, I saw the door was open again. This time my friend came down and we both stared at the door. I asked him if I could look inside. He was nervous but said, "It's creepy as fuck in there. It's where my mom's doll collection is." Sure enough, she had wall-to-wall porcelain doll collection. Just thinking of it today, many years later, creeps me the fuck out. I kinda knew what I was entering that room was possible, the stupidest idea I ever had, and oh boy, I was right. We locked the door back up and went back upstairs to play some PS3. Nothing really happened that night. A few weeks later, we had a late night at his place, and I was once again using the bathroom. I was standing with my back to the door, and I heard the door to the doll room open up slowly, and I just ignored it. Suddenly I hear dog nails, us dog people know the sound from anywhere, scratch up against my door. This spooked me a lot, even to this day. I gathered everything wholly in me and swung the door open, only to find nothing. My friend left the key in the door, so I locked it back up and told my friend. My friend told me that the house has got some weird history. There was a reason that they had no animals in the house, and the few animals they ever had didn't survive long. I can't tell the reason, but it's obscure and very disturbed. This is where it gets a little too much, and to this day, still haunts me every now and then. We were playing some PS3 again, and my bladder is not made for the large quantities of Coca-Cola. So, to the bathroom I go. I didn't even notice the door. I just stormed into the bathroom and did my thing. Suddenly, I hear dog nails walking on concrete floor outside the door, so I wash my hands and swing open the door, and whatever that thing was, I'll never forget. It was a medium-sized dog with very messy fur, and you know, when you take a picture of a dog, like reflective eyes, that was how the eyes looked. We stared at each other for what felt like forever, but it was only about 1 second, and it faded out of existence. I was done being alone in this basement. My friend didn't really believe me, to be honest. I didn't really believe me either, but I got him convinced to try and catch this thing on video. Our shitty phone cameras was about 10 pixels of darkness, and that wouldn't work. So I did some research and found one of those ghost investigator teams with cameras and flashy things, and I told them about it. They were very hyped to spend a few hours in the basement/doll room. They got all their stuff set up, and we sat on the 2 floors up playing some more PS3. After a little while, we heard a lot of shouting, and his front door slammed shut. So we went down there to see what the heck happened. All their things, cameras, and all their ghost-busting equipment was still there. So we went outside and spoke with them. They said that they would come back for their stuff in the morning, and then we would talk. They were shook to their inner cores. I went home and my friend went to bed. I was down there at 9 AM the next morning, but by then, they already got their stuff packed up and left. My friend told me that they caught the door opening and something launched at them and haunted them out of the basement. I asked if they had any evidence, or at least something to show for it, and no. All their footage, except for the door getting open, was corrupted. I was so sad that I'll never forget their faces. By this stage, his parents divorced and his mom moved out and took her doll collection with her, but the thing in the basement stayed there. It was more rare that something went bump in the night, but to this day, I still walk by his old house, and every 8 to 10 months, the house gets new owners, or it's vacant. I wonder why. So, my friend rented an apartment in town. In the complex, there were 3 floors. Where the first floor was a kindergarten, second floor was his apartment and his neighbours, a nice Polish couple, and top floor was an elderly couple living in their late 80s. The apartment building was kinda old, but had its own charm, and for the first 6 months, it was peaceful. My friend doesn't believe in ghosts or anything like that at all, and he never showed interest in the subject either, so I never spoke to him about my ghostly past. About 8 months into him living there, the elderly lady on the top floor passed away, natural causes. It was a sad day, because they were very nice people, and about 8 days after, the husband passed away too, and around this time is when everything started. We started to notice shadow figures moving through his hallway, his front door at one end and kitchen at the other. We tried to recreate this with window angles and such, but him living on floor 2 and no streetlights shining in, it wasn't possible to be people from the outside. My friend found this odd. Not soon after, he would hear dishes from his kitchen getting moved around, but every time we would run out there, 2 seconds of brisk walk, everything would seem to be where it should. The apartment above is where the old people lived, would be empty for a great while, but we would constantly hear footsteps coming from up there, but the landlord assured us that nobody was up there. We even tried to open the door and it was locked with a padlock on the outside. The footsteps became more and more heavy and quickly moving around up there. My friend was losing his shit because in his world, ghosts don't exist. I told him he shouldn't worry, but with everything happened, he was so worried. We got to know the Polish couple next door, and oh boy, they had a lot of similar stories to tell. They've heard and seen all the same stuff as us, and it's come so far that they flew in a psychic family member to come visit them, and the day she arrived we all sat down to do a seance. Now, we didn't tell her anything at all, other than it was a bit spooky at night time, and to be frank, I'm not 100% sure that I believe in ghost killers, but the stuff she told us was crazy to say the least. We never mentioned the couple who lived upstairs. She instantly, as she sat down, saw this old man and lady running back and forth, through the wall between apartments, and the old man following her, and they were fighting constantly, especially in the kitchen area. She even described both of them in great detail, and to my memory, was spot on, the few times we've met and spoken with them prior to their death. We asked if we could send them into the light, and it was a flat-out no. There was so much anger and sadness in their energy. This is going to stick around for a while, and it sure did. 3 months after this, nobody could stand the constant activity and moved out. The landlord renovated the flats and new renters moved in. We haven't been back there since. My name is Brandy. I'm 56 and I live in Washington. All these years, my kids wanted me to write down events that happened to myself and my family. Quite a few members of my family have passed, and I didn't want these experiences to die with them. So for my children, here it goes. A lot of messed up supernatural things have happened to me and my family in my lifetime, most with witnesses. This is one of them. About 25 years ago, while house hunting for a rental, I met the former renter of this run-down but livable house. She warned me not to rent this house because I have small children, and not only was it run down, it was very haunted. And never, she was stern, never let a man live here with you. He will be taken over by the evil that lives here. Now, I'm thinking she's crazy, or she was just mad at the landlord for something, and we needed a home desperately. I was thinking, I've lived through worse, so I blew it off. I ended up renting the house and realising I should have heeded her warning. I feel I should describe the bedroom so you can get a feel of the surroundings. On one side of the room, there was a full-size bed against the wall where I slept. A small nightstand with a lamp and a single bed next to me against the other wall where my two little girls slept. And then the living room door. At our feet was the hall door, a closet and a crib. Many nights we would see the light beneath the door get blocked out, as if someone was walking up to my room and just stand there, then fade away. At first we thought it was my mother-in-law going to the bathroom, since it was next to our room, but we found out later it wasn't her. And the dog would sometimes growl and scratch, but when we opened the door to the hall, there was no one there. Almost every morning at 6 a.m, we could hear the lid to the toilet slam up, and the toilet would flush. But when we ran in there, the lid was down and the water was calm. A phone would start ringing in my room, despite us not even having one at the time. And we could hear old music coming from the walls from time to time, thinking it was coming from the pipes of our neighbour or something. But our neighbour had already moved out, and the house was completely empty. So many things happened there, but this night in particular caused me to never let my girls sleep in their own bed alone. The girls were so happy that day. They both received a package from my mom full of princess stuff, toys, cups and bowls, 2 beach towels and 2 nightgowns embossed with their favourite princess image. The nightgowns were short and silky, and after their bath they begged to wear them in bed, so I happily complied. It was quiet in the house that night. My boyfriend's mother Opal was with family along with my boyfriend. I don't remember where the dog was, but he wasn't there. I took them in, oldest by the wall and youngest closest to me on the outside. I wasn't ready for sleep, so I put a scarf over the lamp to dim the light so I could still read. Now I'm sitting on my bed next to them, and as I'm reading, the covers slightly came down off the girls. I didn't think anything of it, because my older daughter was notorious for kicking off the blankets, so I took them both in and continued my reading. It happened again, and once again I covered them up. At this point I'm feeling uneasy, and the hairs on my arms are starting to raise, never a good sign. I look at my oldest daughter and notice that she hadn't moved. How is this happening? I sat back down on my bed and pretended to read intently, staring at the covers. Moments passed, and I felt myself trembling, trying to hold the book steady. Then it happened. I saw the covers start to move, but the girls were still. I was confused. I didn't understand what was going on. The covers then were pulled down with force, so I leapt up and grabbed the covers from the end of the bed, pulling them up. At this point, I'm standing next to them, and my voice quivered as I firmly said, "Stay away from my girls." I still don't know who I was yelling at. I sat on the bed next to them, gripping the covers tight, when they jerked from my hands, down to the foot of the bed, exposing my girl's legs, and my youngest daughter's nightgown started to raise, and she started to scream as if she was feeling pain, waking her sister. I threw my body over both my girls and screamed, "Get out!" repeatedly. Trying to calm them down and protect them, we stayed huddled together all night. And this was the last time they slept alone in that house. I was able to get a bigger bed, and we all slept together from that point on. I don't have photographic evidence, but my youngest daughter had large red marks on her thigh. Nobody prepares you, you just have to live through it. If I had enough money at the time, we wouldn't have had to. The first time we saw him, it was a nice day. The kids and I were out grocery shopping, having a good time. I usually keep the living room light on when I know we were going to get home after dark. It was just starting to be dusk. I pulled into the gate, and I think the kids were a little too rambunctious. Too much spare change quarter machine candy, I guess. I sat for a moment planning my attack on getting all these groceries, a sleeping baby, and the two girls up the stairs and into the house when I noticed movement in the living room. No one was home. I could hardly see anything in there because the light wasn't on. I started to get out when the girls jumped out of the car and started running for the steps. "Stop!" I yelled and ran over to them. We could hear noises like a child running around, and my eldest daughter to this day says she saw a little boy and describes him to a T, but at that moment, I thought it might be an intruder or something. 3 steps went up to a landing, the locked front door opening into the screened-in porch, then the 3 French doors. I told the kids to go to the car, but they were too scared to leave my side. Both of them clutching the back of my shirt, I armed myself with a big stick by the landing and forged through. Wham! I burst through the door and he was there, his face with his 2 hands cupped against the glass as if he was peering out. And then he vanished. We went inside and I searched every room with my obviously freaked out girls practically attached to my side. There was no one there. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Was I projecting fear onto the girls? I turned on all the lights and ran out to get my sleeping baby and the rest of the groceries when I stopped in my tracks. There on the glass were 2 crescent moon handprints, and it was fogged up where the nose was. It stayed there for at least 20 minutes. Let me add my thoughts here. I don't feel we always need words to communicate with them or for them to get a message to us. They are not bound by flesh. You just have to be open and always keep your will strong. To this day, I couldn't get the image of the sad little boy standing in the corner. As I said in my first post about what we were met with when all came home from our trip, people were standing around, 2 separate groups like 2 different times, and there was a couch not where our couch was, and a man in a white tank top sitting there. He was dirty and he was looking at this boy standing in the corner with such hatred. You could tell though your boy was abused by the way he was standing there with his head down. That's when he looked at me, and it pierced my soul, even now, thinking about him. At night, you could look out the French doors at the storefronts across the streets and the desert field. The property was pitch black, so you could see the reflection of whatever was behind you. That night, everyone was asleep. It was near Christmas, so I was admiring the lights decorating the stores, when I felt one of my children through the floorboards skip up next to me. I turned my gaze to the reflection, and I felt him tug on my shirt, extending my arm over as if to caress the back of his head and pull him next to me. It didn't hit me. This wasn't my child. He got next to me, and all I could feel was love and sorrow. As I turned to him, he was gone. I looked back to his reflection, and it was gone as well. He was about 8 or 9 years old. He had what looked like black and white Converse on. He was wearing old jeans with rolled up cuffs. I could see the edge of a white t-shirt under a light grey sweatshirt, and his hair was sandy blonde and wisped aside with the sweetest smile. In that moment I felt everything and I cried. I saw images of abuse I do not want to elaborate on, and he made me feel that the man was not his father and that he loved the comfort of our presence. So many emotions. I went to bed and held my kids tight. I was so full of questions, like what happened to his mom? How did he die? I looked for records and was told that back in the day, there were not many records kept out here in the desert. A person could live and die, and they wouldn't have records unless it was reported. A few years later, I ran into the former renter, so I asked her if she knew anything about a boy living there, or did someone die, and she said, "Now this is not fact. She heard, I don't know where, that there was a boy and that his mother disappeared, leaving him with his stepdad, who was unhonourably abusive to him. And later the boy was found stuffed in a hole of the property dead, and the stepdad had committed suicide." I don't know if that's true, but it seems pretty close to what I felt. I wish I could have helped him move on.